journey beyond imposter syndrome. This is where I invite you into a space where high achievers and spiritual leaders converge to redefine success and self-worth. By sharing transformative stories and engaging with thought leaders, this podcast serves as a roadmap for navigating the complexities of imposter syndrome. It's an intimate look into overcoming personal barriers tailored for those who value wisdom, leadership, and intuition in business and life. Join me at the Humble Warrior Podcast with Alani Bankhead. Welcome to the Humble Warrior Podcast, you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and the holidays. Do you want to get to January 1st of 2026 being happy and with an overflowing heart and a not empty bank account? You're going to love this episode, okay? Because this is all about your imposter syndrome, actually. So for those, if it's your first time with us, imposter syndrome is the belief that you're not good enough or qualified for your title, the awards, the accolades, whatever work-related stuff that people acknowledge you for, and that you eventually are going to be found out to be an imposter, and that when you are deemed unworthy, bad things are going to happen, right? So while generally imposter syndrome is identified as a work-related thing, it actually impacts every area of our life, including family and the holidays. And so why do I talk about imposter syndrome? Well, I believe, based on my previous experience, that your imposter is actually pointing you to what your greatest power is. And we spend so much time trying to hide from and drown our imposter and avoid it that we're actually missing out on some of the most magical times and opportunities of our lives. And I teach you how you can learn how to harness your imposter to unleash your greatest joys. So again, for those who aren't familiar with my background, I'm a career special agent, military officer. I spent over 2 decades hunting terrorists, spies, and human traffickers, and all kinds of bad actors all over the world. I always felt like I was too small, too female, too brown, and too young looking to make an impact. And then I discovered that actually those were the things that allowed me to achieve really extraordinary results in the spaces. So I facilitated the arrest of many terrorists, hundreds, if not at least 1,000 child abusers, and I do leadership development all over the world now. And so today we're specifically going to talk about the holidays. Is almost the end of October, and Joyful Money Club is in our holiday swing. So we had open registration this summer for our October cohort, which is completely focused on getting to January 1st, thriving, feeling excited for 2026, and not being financially and emotionally depleted, right? And honestly, the people who listen to this podcast deserve this kind of tool because you guys are the most amazing humans who make the magic happen for everybody around them all the time. And the reality is that if you don't learn how to make this magic happen for yourself, you're not only going to end up burned out and resentful, which is a behavior and a symptomatic outcome of imposter syndrome, but you actually won't have any magic left to pour out onto others in the way that you really want. You know, the world often says that you need to be really selfless and humble and all of those things. That is advice needed by a good chunk of the population, but not my listeners. My listeners actually need to do a little bit of the opposite, which is identify that you are a powerhouse at what you do and that you also need love and support. And that's what this space is for. So in terms of imposter syndrome and the holidays, a little bit about my story. So I sacrificed many holidays for work. When I was active duty, I think I counted once, and it was something out of the 12 years I was active duty, I spent 9 Christmases away from home. And, you know, I loved my work. I have no regrets whatsoever. But guys, it is lonely as hell to be working by yourself on Christmas or any other holiday for that matter, birthdays, whatever it might be. And the reality was that I did all this work because subconsciously I didn't realize it, but I was trying to prove my worth, right? And I had all these rules like, I'm the boss, I'm the officer. I should give time and space to the families to be able to connect. And again, no regrets, but I now recognize that I deserve some time to decompress and have some time to myself as well, right? But the other thing that I discovered was when I arrived, quote unquote, right? When I got to that place professionally where I had made it, I actually looked around and I felt super empty. I mean, I thought when I got to that tip top of the career that I would feel accomplished, that feeling of thriving, would just magically appear, and it never did. And at that point, I kind of blew up my career and I set out on a separate path. I entered into working into human trafficking in a nonprofit space. I went back to work for the government for a little bit, and then I started my own company to teach people how to do this. And what I discovered was that you have to find that thriving and joy in the journey. Otherwise, if you're looking at when I get there, then I'll be happy, you're always going to be moving the target. And when you get there, you're not actually going to be happy. So, some examples of what I do now to get to January 1st and thrive and harness my imposter to work for me, right? I take the entire month of December off as much as possible. If I have active clients that I'm working, clients are not draining for me. They are so life giving. I love engaging with them. So I will continue to meet with my existing clients, but I do not recruit or take on any new clients in December. I make them wait until January. I identify what I need to arrive on January 1st feeling energized and ready to go. So I actually do this work in the fall where I say, hey, January 1st, I imagine myself waking up and it was an incredible holiday season. Everybody's gifts were perfect, but not in an overly thought out way, but just they are energizing and loving. I loved giving them, not in terms of receiving feedback that they were perfect, right? But I felt like it was my best offering to that person. I was generous. I only give things that bring me joy to give. Something that we don't really talk about a lot, but I've talked about it in the past on the podcast, but generosity. So my husband and I have been generous with the community for a long time now. And it started really small, right? So we used to think back in the day of, oh man, every December you read those stories of those people who anonymously pay off school lunches that are overdue, right? And we always wanted to do that. And we kind of had this belief we didn't realize we had of we can only do it when we can pay off all of the school lunches. And then I discovered, well, wait a second, we don't have to pay off all of them. What if we dedicate a certain amount of money to pay for some of them, and then we can grow on that every year? And that's what we've been doing. We donate to food banks. We leave fat tips in December, you guys. Oh my gosh. And it is so much fun to find that person at a restaurant who is just an exceptional host or server, and they do such a great job and they do it with such joy and enthusiasm. And then we can leave them a really fat tip and run out, right? Like we don't actually want to get the thank you, but we want them to feel the love and appreciation that we have for them. Like, oh, I can't wait for that. It's right around the corner. So exciting. We have family rules, such as you have to ask for the thing you wouldn't buy for yourself. So there's usually one or two things that I'm like, there's absolutely no way I would ever pay for that because that is so expensive for that, but it's so beautiful. And for whatever reason, it just makes me really happy thinking about it, right? And it doesn't have to be a thing. It can be an experience. It might be a trip or something like that, right? So that's the thing that we will ask of the other person, right? Because we know sometimes it's hard to do stuff for ourselves, right? Because our imposter syndrome says we can't receive unless we've earned it. And so sometimes we have to ask for help in receiving things that we know that we're worthy of. And so I'll ask for something that I really want. Last year, I asked for, if those of you who know Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa, I love her. And she has these silver surveying bowls that are so classic and so beautiful and timeless. And I looked them up and the price was outrageous, but I was like, I really want some. I would never buy them for myself. And my husband gifted me some, and they are so beautiful, and I love entertaining even more. And I have this connection to Barefoot Contessa every time I bust those bad boys out because she inspires me to want to create, right? So there's a lot of different things happening. It's not just about having the thing, it's about the connection that you experience and what does thriving look like? What kind of environment do you want to live in? Another thing I do for myself is I hibernate a lot in December. I sleep in, I read a lot. That's something that I don't normally allow for myself. So I will listen to audiobooks throughout the year, and I will sleep or read a little bit before I go to bed. But in terms of dedicating an hour or two a day to just sit in a cozy chair with a blanket and a hot cup of tea by the fire and read, that is something I don't normally allow myself to do throughout the year. So December is my time to do that. Being intentional about making appointments to spend time with people I actually really enjoy spending time with, not people I should spend time with, people who I actually love spending time with. That's what I focus on. So I have done all this work to learn how to craft my December so that it is super fun and enjoyable. And I'm really excited to share those tips with you. So, first and foremost, the biggest one that I'm going to talk about and that we talk a lot about in Joyful Money Club is financial and gift giving pressure, right? So, there's a tendency to overspend to prove your worth, right? So you buy expensive gifts or you host elaborate gatherings to feel successful or generous enough with people, right? And it's all about, are they perceiving me as being successful or generous enough with them? There's guilt when you spend on yourself, right? Feeling undeserving of rest, fun, or nice things because you haven't earned it. I already mentioned that one. And to be honest, that's something that if you heard what I said a minute ago, I'm still learning how to manage that. And one of the tools that I use to do that is I don't try to do it in my own strength. I ask for help in doing it. And the reality is that you deserve good things not because you've earned them. You deserve good things because you exist, because you are a human being who deserves the same love that you give everybody else, right? And this is clutch in learning how to harness your imposter is when you realize that it has existed to keep you small, to keep you safe. And you realize, actually, I don't have to earn my worth, right? That's a behavior of imposter syndrome is overworking to the point of burnout because you want to prove that you're worthy and that you matter, right? And so whether you do it on your own, you decide on your own, or whether you want to enlist a community of people who love you, who want to give you good things, there's no wrong way of doing this. It's just about what works for you. Another thing with financials and gift giving pressure, seeing other people and their holiday posts and their gifts that they put on social media can amplify feelings of not being as accomplished or put together. And as we all know, social media is the worst with people only putting their highlight reels and not their sucky moments, right? So, imposter syndrome will get us into the habit of comparing our insides with other people's outside. And I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. People's insides are just as messy as your insides, they just don't show it. That's why when Brene Brown talks about vulnerability and why it's so important and connective, it's because we're all acknowledging when we're vulnerable that we're all messy, right? So those are kind of like the bigger ones in terms of gift giving and finances, right? And we're going to talk about solutions in a second. I want to talk about how imposter syndrome shows up during the holidays, right? So we talked about gift giving. Now we're going to talk about family and social dynamics. Oftentimes, feeling like a black sheep is very common during the holidays, right? So, around family, you're going to have your old roles and patterns and expectations that can resurface, which triggers doubts about your own growth and your own achievements. So, if you feel like, there's always this idea of like, I don't necessarily belong, or there's family drama, right? We often feel like our family is the only one with drama, but that's not true. Every family has drama. You might avoid confrontations or conversations rather about work or goals, right? So your inner imposter can often make people minimize or deflect praise that you deserve. So if somebody says like, "Oh my gosh, I heard that you got this promotion at work," and you might say something like, "It's not that big a deal," or "I just got lucky," or something like that. So oftentimes with imposter syndrome, you're attributing your success to external factors rather than your internal ability to achieve and do amazing things just because of your amazing humanity, right? So if you're minimizing or you're deflecting compliments or people saying nice things about you, that's an indicator that you're letting your imposter lead. Overcompensating to fit in is another key thing that comes up, right? Trying to be overly helpful, cheerful, or accommodating out of fear of not being enough. I know I'm a number one guilty of this. I'm the one who traditionally has been at the parties saying, I can clean up the table, I can help do dishes, whatever it might be. And that's beautiful in and of itself if you really want to do that. And I do definitely feel moments where I want to contribute in that way. But the difference is that I don't do it because I'm scared that people are going to judge me for not doing or being enough. I do it because I genuinely love the host and I want to help. It just feels like a natural overflow of who I am as a person. So that covers family and social dynamics. Next up, we have work and end of year reflection, right? Where are my vision board ladies at? I know I love me some vision boarding. And this might be the time of year that you're pulling out or maybe dusting off the vision board, right? And you're looking at all the things that you didn't do. So your imposter's in overdrive saying, see, you said you were going to do all these things. You didn't even do 10% of them or whatever. And it's going to start pointing to this is why you don't deserve all these good things. You don't even follow through on the things that you say you're going to do. And that's very typical imposter syndrome, right? And so I want you to show yourself extra grace around this area. And again, we're downplaying accomplishments, right? When you're doing a year-end review or goal setting, someone with imposter syndrome may focus on what they didn't do instead of what they actually achieved. It's very easy to look at our deficiencies rather than our successes. And that's a function of our prehistoric conditioning, right? When we focus on what we haven't done, that is a survival mechanism to ensure that we are providing for our four walls and our food and all of those things. But guys, it's 2025. We don't have to do that anymore. Like, we are going to survive no matter what. So again, we're going to talk about how we shift that here in a second, but I want you to know if you're in that space of, oh my gosh, it's almost the end of the year and I haven't done anything, that means your imposter syndrome is running you and not you running your imposter syndrome. Struggling to rest. Ooh, this is a biggie, right? So feeling guilty for taking time off as if you should be earning relaxation by being more productive. Psh, seriously, I was ruled by this for the longest time. I always felt like I wasn't allowed to rest. And even when I was resting, I was like, what's the most productive way I can rest? It was just so ridiculous and over the top. And honestly, it took time for me to learn how to undo that. I'm going to give some examples of how I did that here shortly. But the third point is fear of future expectations, right? So anxiety that the new year will expose you as not truly capable or deserving of your current success. And so you might feel the need to work to catch up or to stay caught up going into the new year. I actually, because I take December off, I reverse engineer what I have to do between now and November 30th so that I'm already ready and postured in January and I can rest in December. I literally just did this with a client an hour ago where she's like, I really want to, but I always feel like I'm behind. Well, guess what? When you're a person of perfectionism tendencies, you're always going to feel like you're behind. So when you acknowledge that, like, your to-do list is never going to be done, you start to create a separate container for you to learn how to rest in your own way. Okay. So that covers work. Now we're going to talk about emotional and mental health, right? So again, that perfectionism around the holidays. If you feel like everything, including decor, gifts, appearance, your behavior have to be perfect to validate your self-worth, right? Rather than, oh my gosh, I got the cutest cranberry outfit with like a sequin black pant just for fun, right? Because it's an expression of who I am, not because I want the world to perceive me a certain way. Those are two completely different outcomes. Isolation. So if you avoid gatherings and celebrations because of self-doubt or comparison, your imposter syndrome is running you. You are not running it. And then shame cycles. So feeling like joy and gratitude should come naturally during the holidays and feeling defective if they don't come naturally. This was a really big one for me, right? Like, I'd want all the joy and then I would go through the motions and then I would beat myself up because I was like, why aren't I feeling the joy? I checked all the right boxes, right? But I discovered it's not about when you get there, right? Because if you're looking at the thing and saying, I will be happy when I get there, when you get happy and you don't feel, or when you get there and you don't feel the happiness, you are immediately going to move the goalpost to something else. What you have to learn is, how do I experience joy and thriving every moment of my life? And honestly, guys, I do. Even when things aren't going well, I have enough evidence in my life to support that even those bad moments, quote unquote, are going to turn into magic down the road because that's how it's always been. And so it feels incredible to be in a place of abundance where I'm not focusing on my deficiencies and whatever parts of myself I think are defective, because the truth is, I'm not defective. And I have abundance with my relationships. I have abundance with my business. I have abundance with my bank accounts. And I'm super thankful for the ability to have that so that I can show you the way to get there yourself. And also, so you can see, the more generosity you invite in, the more you can give. It feels very counterproductive, right? The world says you're selfish if you want more, but you can feel content and also want to self actualize on another level. And that is not mutually exclusive. They can be one and the same. Okay, so we talked about a lot of indicators around how imposter syndrome might impact your holidays. So, solutions. The first and most important thing I want you to remember is, how will we know that we've arrived to a solution that works for us? And the answer is, you will know when you implement something and you feel joy, peace, flow state, that little magical je ne sais quoi. When you experience anything life giving like that, that indicates that we have our head, heart, and behaviors fully aligned with who we were always meant to be. Okay. So if you're experiencing fear or scarcity, so again, if I'm having the thought that I have to, oh my gosh, overspend on a gift I didn't budget for because my neighbor brought something unexpectedly and I didn't have anything planned for them. Now I have to go out and get them something that's kind of subpar, right? You're doing that from a place of fear because you're worried the neighbor is going to judge you or think that, oh, they don't care enough about me to reciprocate. They must be a bad person, right? All those things. That's not true. Sometimes we give, sometimes we receive. And that is what's most important. Is I want you guys in your heart of hearts to trust your intuition. And you make your list, right? You make your Christmas list, you come up with your budget, you come up with the parameters that feel really good for you, and then you don't deviate from those unless something really special comes up. And again, you will know to deviate when you feel joy, peace, and flow state, not when you feel fear and scarcity and guilt and shame. Okay. If you are not sure, if you are faced with a decision and you're like, I'm not feeling joy or peace and I'm not feeling scarcity, what that is an invitation to pause and get curious about what's going on. What would need to happen for me to get to joy and peace? Or do I let this go? Honestly, I've learned that if I get the yellow light instead of a green or a red light, I interpret a yellow light as a red light and I don't do it. Plain and simple. It has never steered me wrong. So, solutions. Number one, we want to reframe your inner dialogue, right? So if you have that running thought that I don't deserve to rest, right? You can change it to I do deserve to rest. And actually, rest is what makes me capable and creative again, because we know you love being in that creative space and you don't like being in guilt and shame. So you are directly responsible for your own joy. And we know that rest is one of the vehicles that's going to slingshot us up there. Okay. Another thought that is really common: I haven't done enough this year to make a magical holiday. You can reframe that to I've done what I could in the season I was in, and that is completely enough, right? I just hosted our first holiday party for the year. Normally, I like to host throughout the year, but I was on active duty. Things were really crazy, and we did not make time for that. And it was interesting because I like to bake everything from scratch. I like to know that the food that I'm serving is really delicious. But even though we set up this really beautiful spread, there were a couple things that I said, I'm just going to go to Costco and buy those chocolate cupcakes. Oh my gosh, you guys, they are delicious and out of control, as are their pumpkin streusel muffins. Oh, so good. So I bought those, and it was funny because I had a guest come in and they're taking in the layout of the food spread. And he was like, oh my gosh, Alani, did you bake all of this? And I was like, Costco baked it. And I didn't feel any guilt or shame about it. I was just acknowledging that I wanted to have a good time during this party process. And that's what I did. This person did not say anything. They ate the food. And honestly, what they cared more about was the presentation. They were like, this is beautiful, right? And the point is, my intention when I do those food presentations is I believe, like the chefs say, that you eat as much with your eyes as you do with your mouth. And I want people to come in and just feel love, that we are hosting this because we love them and we want to connect with them. And that's the only thing that really matters. And so before you go into an end of year gathering or you do your end of year reflection, write down 3 things that you're proud of, right? Even really small wins. Like maybe you didn't achieve the revenue outcomes that you wanted in your business, but you kept showing up for yourself. Or maybe you haven't quite mastered the magic of the holidays. You're working through this process for the first time ever. Maybe the win is I asked for help when I needed it, which is amazing, right? One thing that I had to do, this is a really small example of something I had to celebrate, was I used to do all the gift wrapping for the family. And then I got to the point where I was like, I'm not wrapping my own gifts. Like, are you kidding me? Right. And then another thing is, I like efficiency. I love wrapping gifts. I love putting a Christmas movie on and having a glass of like hot cider or something. And doing the wrapping, that's really enjoyable for me, but I actually find it more enjoyable when somebody's there, like, cutting off little bits of tape and just handing them to me rather than me having to stop and do that. Like, it's fun to do it with someone else, and so I'll ask for help when I need that, and that's a win for me. So we talked about reframing the inner dialogue, right? So whatever the thought is that's dictating the behavior you don't want, you shift it a little bit. And if you need help doing this, hit me up. I'd love to help you with that. Number two, we're going to spend with intention, not comparison. So I want you to make a values based gift list, and I want you to give according to love and not pressure. So, an example of this, I have a family member who has student loans. She had 6 figures of student loans. And one year she reached out to me and asked for permission. Instead of buying me something, she asked to write me a letter. And oh my gosh, guys, this letter was so beautiful. It is still one of my most treasured possessions. And it detailed how I supported them and how I encouraged them and how much it meant to them. Literally, the only resource invested was time and the cost of one piece of paper. It was almost nothing in terms of money, but so valuable for me. So when you think about what is the value I most want to embody with this person, they wanted to love on me. And they knew that for me, one of my wishes for them was I wanted to be them to be financially secure and free. I didn't need anything physical, but having these really precious words just meant so much more to me than receiving a gift at all, right? I have another family member that buys people things and they're in a really bad financial spot, and it really breaks my heart. And we've actually asked them, hey, a better gift for us would be if you took that money and you invested it in creating a more stable life for yourself. And they won't do it, which is fine. You know, we receive the gifts with love and joy and gratitude, knowing that they're doing the very best they can. But what I really want is I want to know that they're going to be okay long term, right? And I want you to remind yourself that your presence matters so much more than your presence, right? The gifts. Your presence matters so much more than presents, the gifts. And people want more of you. They want more quality time with you. And even if it's a 1 hour one-on-one coffee with someone that means the world to you, they just want to spend time with you. That is the best gift, right? And while you're working this process, because a lot of you are going to be new to it, if guilt or shame shows up while you're spending, pause and ask, am I buying this to express love or am I buying it to prove something? And that's going to inform you on whether you should buy it or not, right? Number three, we're going to set emotional boundaries. Guys, you don't have to justify your life choices to anybody, even family, right? I have a client in Joyful Money Club who had talked about how every holiday they intend to spend it with family and just calmly enjoy the season and relax and re-energize. And they always have someone calling in, and there's some thing that pops up where they have to fly somewhere and leave this cocoon that they made for themselves. And so a simple first step for that person was you make a decision that you're not flying anywhere this year. And then step two is you're going to tell everybody in your circle, I'm not flying anywhere this year. I'm staying right here and I'm spending time with the family. So setting the boundary and then enforcing it. Be prepared for people to be upset with you. That's totally okay. They're actually upset because you're breaking a pattern that they benefited from. And you can bet on it. But that's not a you problem, that's a them problem. If the roles were reversed, you would absolutely never guilt anybody into doing something that benefited you. Never. So the fact that you allow it tells me that imposter syndrome is running you. You're not running it. Okay. Prepare for graceful exits from tough conversations, including political conversations, right? You might say something like, that's an interesting question, but I'm focusing on enjoying today. Or you could pre-prep other segue or transitioning sentences to get out of it. In the work that I do in law enforcement and the military, we do a lot of preparation, right? We spend a lot of time in the mat room preparing for the real thing. Why we do that is so that we work through kinks before we get to the actual main event. And that way, we are best postured to make the best operational decision in the moment. As a counterintelligence officer, we do the same thing with some of our conversations, right? So if I'm trying to recruit someone as a spy, we pre-plan the conversations. What is that going to look like? What is the desired end goal? And what transition sentences do I have to put in to get from where I am to where I want to be in the conversation? And we practice those, right? If you do a little bit of this practice, even just 5 minutes before you go into an event, you're going to be so much better prepared. Also, limit time with people who trigger old self doubt and balance it with time around people who make you feel seen and loved. Listen, if I could wave a wand and make you do one thing, it would be eliminate the word should from your vocabulary this holiday season and forever. When you should all over yourself, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're setting yourself up for resentment. But I get that this is a process. And especially with family, it can be really difficult to say, I'm going to cut a family member off, right? And so the question becomes, how do you honor yourself during this season of learning a different operating system of how to be? And it might be you agree to, hey, we're not going to open presents with you on Christmas morning, but we will come by afterwards and do pancakes with you guys or something like that, right? There are lots of different ways that you can limit time without cutting people out. And if you want to cut people out, I give you full permission to do so. Number 4, redefine productivity for the season. So again, I want you to avoid should, right? Replace I should be doing more with this is my recharge season. Do you feel the difference? Like, I should be doing that. There's guilt, there's shame versus I'm recharging. That feels energizing. That feels loving. Okay. Treat rest, reflection, and connection as productive acts because they are. So I talk a lot about tactical retreats, right? In the military, when we're getting our butts kicked in the field, sometimes we will engage in a tactical retreat, which is where we pull back away from the enemy. It looks like we're losing. We stop, we get more ammunition, more water, we re-strategize what we want to do. So we rest, we reflect, and we connect with each other. And then when we have a good plan and we are re-energized and restocked, we launch forward to beat the enemy. Now, I know it's kind of like a very black and white morbid example, but I want you to look at this in a similar way if that resonates with you. Rest, reflection, and connection. Are you taking a step back to re-energize so you can launch forward? You're not losing success. You're not losing time. You're actually going to be more productive. You're going to achieve more at the end of the day by taking this strategy on. And third, give yourself permission to celebrate progress, not perfection. I always talk about 1% wins, right? We want to move the ball forward a tiny bit at a time because little bits of progress get us to that magical place, right? The book Atomic Habits by James Clear talks about this. There's all kinds of examples in that. But the reality is that we're never going to be perfect. And really, who likes perfection? I prefer my cookie decorating to be done by a 5-year-old and it's like a hot mess and like the face is halfway like sliding off, right? Because it's made with their little hands and it's made with love and it's fun and I love it, right? I don't want a perfect cookie. I mean, those are delicious too, but okay. Item number 5, we want to practice self-compassion rituals. What if you wrote yourself a holiday card, right? What would you say to a friend who worked as hard as you did this year? I know it sounds crazy, but some of you need your own holiday card, okay? Or you can start with a morning affirmation like, I belong in every room I enter. I'm enough without earning it. I deserve to have a joy-filled, peaceful, and loving holiday season. Okay. If affirmations resonate with you, try it out, right? You can also choose one joyful act that isn't tied to achievement. This is one of my favorites. Baking, music, going on a walk, decorating, just for the fun of it. Now, it's probably been about 6 or 7 years since I started doing this, but I years ago started working on puzzles. Younger me would do arts and crafts, and it kind of wasn't fun because I was trying to blaze through and finish it. And then one year I just felt this pull over the holidays, like bust out a puzzle. And it was a really great exercise ground for me to undo all the old achievement habits. I realized like, oh, I'm tiring myself out by trying to blaze through the puzzle again, but the point is to just have fun with it. And over time, I learned how to just get lost in the puzzle. And I would work on it until I started feeling tired, and then I would stop and then I'd come back. And I like walking past on my way to the kitchen or something and putting a piece in and then walking away. And that was me following my intuition and learning the magic that is in just being present for myself and enjoying something for the sake of just enjoying it. I have a client who has said she wants to bake a different batch of cookies every day in December. That is incredible. And you know what? The high achiever in you might think, but if you get to the end of December and you haven't done a batch every day, your inner imposter might say that's failure. Let's say you only did 20 in the month of December. That's still 20 batches of delicious cookies that you were present for, that you got to share with your loved ones and your neighbors. And that is a massive win, right? 20 batches of cookies is more than zero, is the point. So these single little joyful acts are not tied to achievement. It's almost like a little rebellious act of like, I'm doing this for me. And then I want you to pause and consider, how did that feel? Okay, last little bit of reframing. Anchor in gratitude and connection. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring your struggles. It means recognizing that you can hold both growth and grace, right? So I used to get stuck in trying to do gratitude, but not really. So I'd be like, oh, I'm grateful for a roof over my head. And yeah, I'm grateful for it, but like I didn't really feel it. It wasn't until actually I had a moment the other day where a friend reminded me of a post that I did on social media, I don't know, like 15 years ago, where I was in the desert, I was deployed, and we hadn't had hot showers in 3 months. And the first hot shower I had on that deployment was such a gift that I still carry with me. And I posted about my gratitude. And so I had to start there, where it was true, deep gratitude for, oh my gosh, that hot shower was such a gift and I will never forget it. And I haven't. Focusing on connection, right? So write or say what you genuinely appreciate about someone, because it quiets that internal critic and it strengthens your sense of belonging and connection with other people. So, with that being said, I covered a lot of territory for you guys, but I really want you to try this December to love on yourself even 5% as much as you love on everybody else, because you deserve it. And the reality is that there are other people taking all the joy and thinking that they do deserve it, when you and I both know that they are not good human beings. And they're energized for January to do their self-serving stuff. But when the humble folks like you minimize yourself, it means you're less primed, less ready to go into the year and the important work that you have to offer the world and your own thriving. And we need more of you to step up in terms of not productivity, but loving on yourself, because you inspire others to do the same thing when you do it for yourself. So guys, that's it for me for today. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to leave a comment or shoot me a DM. Or if you're interested in joining Joyful Money Club, you can go to joyfulmoneyclub.com. We are accepting applicants for the January cohort. And I'm so thrilled and over the moon with how amazing this year's cohort has done. I cannot wait to share their wins with you. But guys, in the meantime, please remember, the world needs who you were made to be. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovering how you can reframe your imposter and make it work for you. Love you. See you next time. If you enjoyed this episode and would like some help overcoming your imposter syndrome, check out the free life purpose exercise on my website and subscribe to my blog. If you already know what your life purpose is and are ready to crush or harness your imposter syndrome, then you're gonna love my best-selling book, The Least of Us: How Your Weakness Points to Your Greatest Power, available on Amazon and all major book retailers. Or you can hit me up at Alani at mightysparrowcoaching.com to discuss private coaching or corporate and government training. That's ALANI at mightysparrowcoaching.com. Listen, there's only ever been one you, and there will only ever be one you. And you have a specific gift to give that the world desperately needs. Don't let your self-doubt be the thing preventing you from living your most joyful and impactful life. Until next time, I'm always cheering you on.